I hit the jackpot for $20 million.
I
Quit my job and prepared to move back to my hometown. My boyfriend, Kaden, Sterling, reminded me not to show off my wealth to my family. I laughed at him for being so paranoid.
Kaden didn't say
Anything, but he changed my emergency contact on my phone to his number.
at
The station, I called my dad to pick me
up.
He asked me why I was coming back so.
Suddenly,
I joked that I was sick and was coming home to be a leech and recover. I waited until evening, but he never showed up. I caught a ride home in the pouring rain. As soon as I reached the door, I heard my sister-in-law complaining. Can we please not let her
in?
I don't want to live with a sick person. It's bad luck you have to. Promise me.
Not tell them about the
Lottery when you get back. My boyfriend, Kaden, held my hand. He looked incredibly worried as he gave me one last warning. Are you sure you don't want me to go with you? I thought he was overthinking
things.
I wanted to tease him for being so cautious, but then I saw the deep
Concern in his eyes.
He had actually taken time off work to accompany me because I get terrible motion sickness on the bus. He was worried I couldn't take care of myself alone. I patted his
hand.
Go back to work. You need to keep an eye on that project at the office.
I
Promise I won't tell them about the money. Don't worry. After getting my word, Kaden changed my emergency contact to his number. I finally nagged him into heading back to the station. He kept looking back at me as he walked away.
I
Sighed and stood at the station entrance. I called my dad, acting a bit spoiled, and asked him to come get me. On the other end, my dad paused for a
second.
He asked why I was back so unexpectedly. I intentionally used a weak voice.
I
Worked myself sick. I quit my job to come home and recover. I want to see what it feels like to live off my parents for a while. The phone went silent for a few seconds. For some reason, a faint feeling of unease stirred in my heart. I tried to comfort myself, thinking maybe he was just shocked that I was ill. I'll come get you after work, he said. He hung up immediately.
I sat on a bench outside
the station feeling a bit let down, but it was a weekday. My dad was known for being a serious worker. It made sense that he couldn't leave early to pick me
up.
I waited from 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 7 o'clock in the evening. The sky turned dark and a heavy rain began to
pour.
My dad wouldn't pick up his phone. There were fewer and fewer people at the station. I started to feel scared. I had to run out into the rain and hail an Uber. The town wasn't very safe at
night.
I caught the driver watching me through the rearview mirror.
With a
creepy look, I gripped my phone tightly.
the whole way.
I didn't breathe a sigh of relief until the car stopped safely. I bolted toward my front door, like I was escaping something.
Can we please not
Let her in? I don't want to live with a
sick person?
It's bad luck.
My
Sister-in-law Mindy's voice drifted out. My hand froze right before I could
knock.
Then came my brother Rusty's impatient voice. Mom, Mindy is 5 months pregnant. I won't let her stay in the same room as a walking biohazard. I let out a cold laugh. I gave up on knocking and pulled my keys from my bag. I opened the door and walked right in.
This is my house.
I don't need your permission. This is Cassie's house. You have no right to talk like that. My mother and I spoke at the same time. My mom was standing by the kitchen door. She looked at me and smiled, though she seemed a bit surprised. Cassie, you're home.
She
Saw that my hair was soaked. She quickly explained, your father had to work late tonight. He didn't have time to go get you. I cursed myself for being inconsiderate. I should have just taken a car earlier. Instead of expecting my dad to leave work for me. Why didn't you knock?
where
Are your manners? Rusty frowned and started nitpicking. He watched me struggle with my heavy suitcase but didn't move an inch from the sofa.
I
Told you this is my house. Why the hell would I knock on my own door?
I had
Never gotten along with Rusty. Every word we exchanged was a barb. My mom sighed and went back into the kitchen. Mindy leaned into Rusty's arms.
she
Didn't hide her annoyance as she glanced at me. So Cassie's back to leech off the
family.
coming back from the big city is Really something you're so proud of. Being a burden. I didn't feel like wasting my breath on her. I walked past her toward my old bedroom.
There was a
Little rabbit-shaped air freshener hanging on the door. I reached out, ripped it off, and threw it on the
floor.
Cassie Ross, why are you throwing my things? Mindy got angry. She stood up and screamed at me. Don't you dare go in
There.
I ignored her and pushed the door open. The entire room had been painted
Pink.
There was a soft rug on the floor, and fairy lights everywhere near the windows at a crib. My room had been completely turned into a nursery.
What
Is the meaning of this? I pointed into the room and demanded an answer.
Mindy.
Walked over with a scowl. She grabbed a bottle of disinfectant and started spraying it wildly into the room.
What
Does it look like? Are you blind? This is my baby's room. Get away from here. You're covered in germs. Don't stay in this room and infect my baby.
Who are
You calling full of germs? I was truly furious now I had paid for this house in full even if I didn't come
home often?
Keeping a room for me was only right now. They hadn't even bothered to tell me before turning it into a nursery. You're the one who said you were sick and came back to recover. Who knows what kind of nasty disease you
Have
Mindy muttered, seeing my face
darken.
She quickly backed away and turned to Rusty for help. Rusty, can you stop making a scene? Cassie Rusty stepped in and shielded Mindy. You just came in from outside. You haven't showered or disinfected. Your sister-in-law is carrying the Ross family heir. It's been 6 months.
How did
You become so selfish? I rolled my eyes. Are you serious, Rusty? If I were selfish, would I have let a loser like you leech off me in this house for
years?
who are you calling a loser?
Shut up.
My father stood at the door with a grim expression. He glared at Rusty. Rusty. Mindy apologized to Cassie right
Now.
Rusty snorted. He grabbed Mindy and stormed off into the master bedroom, slamming the door so hard it shook.
The
Living room fell silent. My father's expression softened, then gave me a guilty smile. I'm sorry, Kathy.
I
Couldn't make it to pick you up today. Are you soaked? Go take a shower before you catch a cold. I felt a bit hurt.
I
Pouted and started acting spoiled with him. My room is gone. Do you and Mom not want me anymore? Don't talk nonsense.
my
Father's voice suddenly got loud, startling me. He quickly returned to his usual gentle tone. Don't overthink it, Cassie. It was my fault for not telling you about the nursery beforehand.
he
Walked over and pulled me into a hug. Your sister-in-law is due soon.
she
Wanted to set it up early. I thought you were a kind girl who would understand her, right? Those words felt a bit strange, but I was wrapped in his warm embrace. I didn't think too deeply about
it
I just asked weakly, then where am I supposed to sleep? Stay in the nursery.
for now.
There's a big bed in there. Just make do for a few days. My father patted my back. Mindy thinks I'm covered in germs. My mother came out of the kitchen and raised her voice on purpose. Don't listen to her nonsense.
Our
Precious girl doesn't have any germs. She just thinks she's special because of that belly. I burst out laughing, my tears turning into a smile. I didn't care what Rusty or Mindy thought of me. Our relationship had always been bad, and I had no interest in fixing it.
as
Long as my parents still cared about me, that was enough. I took a hot shower, and
changed.
by the time I came out, my mom had set the table with a feast. Rusty and Mindy were already eating. Looking cold and annoyed, my parents waited for me with smiles. Only after I sat down did they pick up their forks. My mom even brought out 2 plates of steamed seafood from the kitchen. Mom, why were you hiding this from us?
Mindy
Complained. Are you afraid your grandson and I are going to eat you out of house and home? My mom glared at her, but ignored the question. Here, Cassie. Your favorites, mantis, shrimp, and clams. Thanks, Mom. I smiled happily.
I
Purposely smirked at Rusty and Mindy to show off how much I was loved.
eat.
All she does is eat. Rusty slammed his fork onto the table and stood up.
I
Don't know why you're so good to her. She quit her job just to come back and leech off us. You bastard. My dad raised his hand and slapped Rusty across the
face.
Rusty's cheek turned red and swollen instantly. He looked dazed for a moment. Dad, if you aren't going to eat, get back to your room. Stop making the house so miserable. Rusty stared at my dad in disbelief. Then he gave me a venomous look, his chair over and stomped back to the master bedroom. Mindy felt awkward and followed him like a shadow. My dad stood there huffing for a bit before sitting down. He smiled at
Me.
that scare you, Cassie? Your brother has been spoiled. He's useless. Eat up, Cassie. My mom said, gently putting food on my plate. Let's ignore them. I made everything you like. You've worked so
Hard.
just rest at home and don't feel pressured. Your father and I don't make much, but we can afford to take care of our precious girl. My eyes stung.
Tears.
Poured out uncontrollably as I hugged my mother tightly. Good girl, don't cry. You're a grown-up now. Isn't it embarrassing to cry like this? My mom held me and gently stroked my hair.
In
that moment, I almost told them about the $20 million. I wanted to tell them they didn't have to work anymore. I wanted to tell them their daughter would take care of them forever. You have to promise me. Do not tell them about the lottery when you get back. Cadence's warning echoed in my
ears.
I bit my lip and swallowed the words. I changed the subject instead. Mom, maybe I should move back to that small condo I bought. Mindy is far along in her pregnancy. It's not good if we
Keep arguing.
The air went weirdly still for a few seconds.
It was just like when
My dad had hesitated on the phone earlier. I looked up at my mom in confusion. She forced a panicked smile and tried to soothe me. Don't be silly. This is your home. Stay here and spend time with me.
Don't you want to? Of
Course I do. I love you, Mom. I felt like I was missing something.
But I
Didn't have time to think. My mom distracted me with more sweet talk. After dinner, my mom wouldn't let me help with the dishes. She insisted I go
to my room to rest.
I lay on the big bed, staring at the cloud-shaped lamp on the ceiling. This room was the most spacious guest room besides the master bedroom. Even Rusty used to live in a tiny room converted from a den.
When
Mindy moved in and got pregnant, they moved into the master bedroom.
my
Parents didn't want to take my room, fearing I'd be uncomfortable when I visited, so they moved into the den. Because I had good grades and made money, I had always been treated better than Rusty. I always thought our family didn't prefer sons over daughters.
I
Actually thought they preferred me. Thinking about my childhood, I drifted off to sleep. When I woke up, it was the middle of the night. I was thirsty.
I
Got up to go to the kitchen for water. As I passed the den, I heard my parents whispering inside. That was strange.
It
was after midnight. My parents usually went to bed early. Were they losing sleep because of my argument with Rusty? I tiptoed to the door and leaned in to listen to their conversation. In an instant, my blood turned to ice.
my
Hands and feet went cold. The whispering inside the den was low, a conspiratorial hiss that sliced through the quiet of the rainy night. I stood frozen on the cold hardwood floor, my hand hovering inches from the kitchen door. The chill of the storm outside seemed to have seeped into the very foundation of the house, settling deep within my
bones.
Are you absolutely sure she didn't suspect anything? My mother's voice drifted through the gap in the door. The familiar, gentle warmth she had used to coax me into eating mantis shrimp just hours ago was entirely gone, replaced by a sharp, calculating anxiety. She's naive, Martha. She's always been desperate for our approval, my father replied. His tone lacked the boisterous, protective rumble he had used when he slapped Rusty. It was cold, dry, and flat. I had to hit Rusty to keep him quiet. The idiot has a big mouth. If Cassie realizes we already sold her downtown condo to pay off his debt to the loan sharks, she'll sue us before we can get her to sign the papers for this house. My heart did a violent, painful flip in my chest. But what if she refuses to sign the voluntary transfer tomorrow? My mother whispered, her voice trembling slightly. She said she quit her job. She's sick. If she's telling the truth, she doesn't have any income. She's going to be a burden on us. That's exactly why she will sign, my father sneered. A sick, jobless woman has no leverage. We'll tell her we're going to evict her. We'll make her life here a living hell until she puts her signature on the deed transfer. Mindy's Father was very clear. If this house isn't in Rusty's name before the baby is born, they're calling off the wedding and taking the child. We have no choice. Cassie bought this place, yes, but she's just one person. Rusty is carrying on. The family line. You're right, my mother sighed, a sound of relief escaping her. We did what we had to do. Besides, we raised her. She owes us this much. If she's really sick, she should just go find a hospital to rot in. We can't have her bringing bad luck to Mindy's pregnancy. I couldn't breathe. The air in my lungs felt like shards of broken glass. This was the family I had spent years trying to please. The family for whom I had worked 80-hour weeks in the grueling, competitive city, saving every penny just so I could buy them this beautiful, spacious house in our hometown.
I
Had kept my own bedroom here, a small sanctuary I thought was mine, only to find it painted pink, filled with a stranger's baby furniture, and sprayed with disinfectant because I was considered dirty. The slap my father had delivered to Rusty wasn't an act of protection.
It was
Theater. It was a calculated display of artificial love designed to make me feel guilty, cherished, and compliant. They wanted me soft, emotional, and ready to sign away my final asset. And my condo, the small, cozy downtown apartment I had bought with my first major bonus, was already gone. They had forged my signature and sold it to cover my loser brother's gambling debts. A sudden, overwhelming wave of nausea washed over me. I pressed my back against the wall of the hallway, slowly sliding down until my knees touched the cold
floor.
in the pitch blackness of the night. Kaden's face flashed in my mind. You have to promise me. Do not tell them about the lottery when you get back. He had known. He hadn't known the specifics, but Kaden, with his sharp, analytical mind, had observed my family from afar for 2 years.
He had seen how
Every phone call from my mother ended with a request for money, how every achievement of mine was met with a passive-aggressive remark about how Rusty was struggling and needed a sister's help. Kaden had changed my emergency contact on my phone to his number because he knew that if I fell, the people in this house wouldn't catch me. They would strip my pockets and push me further into the abyss. With trembling fingers, I pulled my phone from my pocket. The screen's glow was blinding in the dark hallway. I clicked on Kaden's contact. It was 1:45 a.m. I tapped the screen and sent a single text. Kaden,
you were right. They sold my
condo. They are trying to take the house tomorrow.
Help me.
I didn't expect an answer immediately. I figured he was asleep, resting before his big project meeting. But before I could even lock the screen, the phone vibrated in my hand. I'm already on my way. I rented a car and started driving when you didn't reply to my 10 p.m. text. I'm an hour and a half away from your town. Cassie, do not let them see you're upset. Act completely normal in the morning. Let them play their game. Do not sign anything. I am coming. A single tear, hot and heavy, slipped down my cheek. I bit my lip to keep from sobbing aloud. I wasn't alone. I had $20 million in a secure bank account, and I had a man who was currently speeding through a torrential downpour in the middle of the night just to pull me out of a snake pit. I stood up, my legs still shaky, but my mind suddenly clearing. The grief was still there, a heavy stone in my stomach, but it was rapidly being overtaken by a cold, burning anger. I tiptoed back to the nursery, climbed into the large bed, and stared at the cloud-shaped lamp on the ceiling. I didn't sleep a wink for the rest of the
night.
The morning sun did not bring warmth. It only brought a dull, gray light that filtered through the pink curtains of the nursery. I stood in front of the vanity mirror, splashing cold water on my face. I looked pale, my eyes slightly bloodshot from the lack of sleep, which worked perfectly
for the role I had to play.
I let my hair fall messily around my shoulders and put on an oversized, worn-out gray sweater. I looked exactly like a beaten-down, exhausted woman who had crawled back to her parents' nest to die. When I walked into the living room, the smell of burnt grease and cheap coffee hung in the air. My mother was standing by the stove, flipping eggs with an artificial
cheerfulness.
My father was seated at the dining table, a local newspaper spread out in front of him, though his eyes weren't moving across the page. Rusty and Mindy were already seated, whispers passing between them until the creak of my footsteps made them freeze. Ah, Cassie, you're up. My mother turned around, offering a wide, beaming smile that no longer reached her eyes. Look at you, still so pale.
Come, sit down. I
made breakfast. You need to eat to get your strength back. Thanks, Mom, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I dragged my feet to the table and sat down across from Rusty. Rusty didn't look at me. He was busy staring at his phone, but his fingers were twitching. Mindy, on the other hand, didn't bother hiding her smugness.
She
Rubbed her stomach, leaning back in her chair as if she owned the joint. So, Cassie, Mindy started, her tone dripping with mock pity. Have you thought about what you're going to do? Since you quit your job and all. I mean, medical expenses can be really high, and without health insurance from a company, well, it must be scary. I'm just trying to take it one day at a time, I murmured, staring down at the greasy egg my mother had placed in front of me. I thought I'd just rest at the condo for a while. It's quiet there. The air in the room instantly curdled. My mother dropped her spatula with a clatter. My father cleared his throat, loudly, folding his newspaper with unnecessary force. About the condo, Cassie, my father began, his voice adopting that deep, patronizing tone I had once mistaken for paternal wisdom. Your mother and I were thinking, it's really not a good idea for you to live there right now. Why not? I asked, looking up, keeping my expression perfectly blank and naive. Well, my mother rushed over, wiping her hands on her apron, her face tight. With a forced grin, we actually leased it out. Yes, a long-term tenant. A very lovely family. They signed a 2-year lease just last month. If we break it, the legal penalties would be astronomical. We did it to help you, sweetheart.
we
Figured the extra rental income would help cover your expenses while you were working in the city. Oh, I said, tilting my head. That's strange. I don't remember signing a lease agreement, and I haven't seen any rental income in my bank account. Rusty slammed his coffee mug onto the table, his face flushing red. Why are you being so suspicious? Mom and Dad did it to save your ass. You think you're the only one who matters? We're trying to run a household here, and you just show up, out of nowhere demanding things. Rusty, quiet, my father barked, though there was no real heat in his voice. This time, he turned back to me, reaching into his breast pocket and pulling out a folded sheaf of papers. He smoothed them out on the table and pushed them
toward me.
Cassie, look at this. Since you're sick and currently unemployed, you're highly vulnerable. If you default on any debts or if your former employers try to sue you for leaving so abruptly, your assets could be seized by the courts. I looked down at the document. Bold letters at the top read, voluntary property, transfer and gift deed. What is this? I asked. It's a protective measure, my father said smoothly. We're going to temporarily transfer the title of this house to Rusty. Since he has a stable family and is about to have a child, the court can't touch this property if it's in his name. It's just a formality to keep a roof over our heads. Once you're recovered and back on your feet, we can always discuss transferring it back. Transferring it back? I let out a soft, dry laugh. Dad, I bought this house in full. It cost me $350,000. If I transfer it to Rusty, I have absolutely nothing left. And what about the condo? If it's leased, where's the money? Mindy scoffed, rolling her eyes. Oh, please. You're single, Cassie. You don't have a husband. You don't have a child. Why do you need a whole house? Rusty is the one continuing the Ross family line. He needs this place to secure a future for his son. You're just being selfish. I'm selfish. I looked at my mother. Mom, do you agree with this? My mother avoided my gaze, looking at the floor. Cassie, your brother is a
man.
He needs to have face in front of his in-laws. Mindy's family won't let them stay married if the house isn't in his name. You're our good girl. You've always been strong. You can make money again once you're healthy. Just help your brother this once. The sheer, unadulterated greed in the room was suffocating. They didn't care if I lived or died. They only cared about securing a free house for their precious son, using my assumed illness as a weapon to guilt-trip me into compliance. What if I don't sign? I asked, setting my fork down. My father's gentle expression vanished instantly. The benevolent patriarch was gone, replaced by a cold, ruthless businessman. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing into slits. If you don't sign, Cassie, then you are no longer welcome in this house, he said, his voice flat and menacing. We are not going to harbor a parasite who refuses to contribute to the family. You can pack your bags and find somewhere else to be sick. And don't bother looking for your condo. The tenants have a legal right to stay there, and you won't be able to kick them out. Are you evicting me from the house I bought for you? I asked, my voice steady, devoid of the weakness I had faked earlier. It's not your house if you can't stay in it, Rusty sneered, standing up and towering over me. Just sign the damn paper, Cassie. Stop acting like you're better than us just because you went to the big city. You're nothing but a jobless, diseased failure now. Rusty grabbed my shoulder, forcing the pen into my hand. Sign it.
Now.
Let go of her. The voice didn't come from anyone in the room. It came from the front door, which had just been pushed open. Standing in the entryway, soaked from the morning mist, but looking incredibly imposing, was Kaden Sterling. He wore a crisp charcoal suit, his coat slightly damp, but his posture was straight and commanding. Behind him stood two older men in tailored dark suits, carrying heavy leather briefcases. Rusty flinched at the sudden intrusion, his grip on my shoulder loosening.
Who?
The hell are you? How did you get in here? This is private property. Kaden didn't look at Rusty. His eyes locked onto me, scanning my face, my shoulders, making sure I wasn't hurt. When he saw the red mark on my shoulder, where Rusty had gripped me, his eyes turned into chips of solid ice. He walked into the living room, his footsteps echoing with an authority that made my parents instinctively step back. I am Kaden Sterling, he said, his voice quiet but carrying a terrifying, heavy resonance. And as for this being private property, you are absolutely correct. It is private property, but it does not belong to you. My father stood up, trying to salvage his dignity. Young man, I don't know who you are, but I am the head of this household. This is a family matter. I suggest you leave before I call the police. Please call them, Kaden said, pulling a chair out and gently guiding me to
Sit down.
He stood behind me, his hand resting protectively on my shoulder.
In
fact, we've already done that for you. They should be here in about 10 minutes. What? My mother gasped, her face turning pale. One of the men behind Kaden, a stern-faced lawyer with graying hair, stepped forward and opened his briefcase on the dining table, completely ignoring the plates of greasy breakfast. My name is Harold Vance, senior partner at Vance and Associates, the lawyer
announced.
I represent Ms. Cassie Ross in all her legal and financial affairs. We are here to address several highly serious criminal and civil matters regarding the Ross family. Rusty laughed nervously, though his sweat was starting to show. What legal affairs? She's a jobless leech. She doesn't have money for a lawyer like you. Mr. Vance adjusted his spectacles, pulling out a thick folder. On the contrary, Mr. Ross, your sister is exceptionally well capitalized. But let us begin with the downtown condo located at 402 Oak Street. My parents froze. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. According to public records, the condo was sold 3 months ago for $450,000, Mr. Vance continued, his voice completely devoid of emotion. The transfer deed bears the signature of Cassie Ross. However, we have already conducted a biometric and forensic analysis of the document. The signature is a clumsy forgery. Furthermore, the entire $450,000 was deposited into a bank account belonging to Rusty Ross, which was subsequently drained within 48 hours to pay off debts to an offshore gambling syndicate. That's not true, my father stammered, his face turning a sickly shade of gray. Cassie gave us permission. She said we could use her assets to help her brother. Do you have a written power of attorney? Mr. Vance asked, tilting his head. Do you have a recorded consent?
No.
What you have is a clear, documented case of grand theft, identity fraud, and document forgery. In this state, those carry a mandatory minimum sentence of 7 to 15 years in a state penitentiary. Rusty's knees buckled. He fell back onto the sofa, his eyes wide with terror.
Mom.
Dad, do something. I can't go to jail. I have a baby on the way. Mindy turned on Rusty, her voice screeching. You idiot. You told me she signed those papers. You told me the money was yours. You lied to me. Shut up. You're the one who wanted the nursery. You're the one who wanted her room. Rusty screamed back. Enough. Kaden's voice sliced through their bickering like a scalpel. He looked at my parents, his expression completely merciless. You thought Cassie came back because she was weak, sick, and destitute. You thought she was a lemon you had already squeezed dry, so you decided to throw her to the wolves to secure a future for your useless son. My mother rushed forward, her eyes filled with frantic tears. She didn't look at Kaden. She fell to her knees right beside my chair, trying to grab my hand. Cassie. Cassie, my darling girl. You know we love you. We only did this because we were desperate. Your brother was going to be killed by those loan sharks.
We
Had to save him. You're his sister. You have to understand. I pulled my hand away from her grip. The touch of her hand, which had once felt like safety, now felt like oil. And the slap, Dad? I asked, looking at my father, who was leaning heavily against the kitchen counter, looking 10 years older. You slapped Rusty. Yesterday, at the dinner table. Was that to save him, too? My father couldn't meet my eyes. He looked at the floor, his shoulders slumped. You did it to make me feel guilty, I said, the tears finally spilling over. But my voice remained steady. You wanted me to think you were on my side, so that when you handed me this transfer deed today, I would sign it without question. You sold my condo behind my back, and you wanted to steal my house, too. Cassie. My mother sobbed, reaching for my hem. We're your parents.
We
Raised you. You can't do this to us. Where is your respect? Where is your love? My love was paid in full when I bought this house for you, I said coldly.
My
Respect was buried last night when I heard you say you wanted me to go find a hospital to rot in so I wouldn't bring bad luck to Rusty's baby. The room fell into a deathly, suffocating silence. My mother's sobs stopped. Instantly, she stared up at me, her eyes wide with horror as she realized I had heard everything. Now, Kaden said, stepping forward. He pulled a high-end tablet from his coat pocket, tapped the screen, and turned it toward my family. Let's talk about Cassie's financial status. Because you were very concerned about her being a burden on this family. The screen displayed a certified bank statement from a private wealth management firm. The account holder's name was Cassie Ross. The balance displayed in bold, black numbers was $16,240,500. Rusty's jaw literally dropped. He stared at the screen as if it were a ghost. 16 million? How the hell do you have 16 million? $? The lottery, I said, a cold, bitter smile touching my lips. I won the $20 million jackpot last week. I quit my job because I don't need to work a single day for the rest of my life. I came back here because I wanted to surprise you. I wanted to tell you that you didn't have to work anymore.
I
Wanted to buy Rusty a proper house of his own. I wanted us to be happy. I looked at my mother, whose face was now completely white, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. But Kaden warned me. I continued, looking up at my boyfriend, who squeezed my shoulder gently. He told me not to show off my wealth. He told me to see how you would treat me if I had nothing. And thank God he did. Cassie. Rusty crawled off the sofa, literally dragging himself across the floor toward me, his face twisted in a grotesque, desperate smile. Cassie, my beautiful, smart sister. I was just stressed. The pregnancy, it's making us all crazy. You know I love you. We're blood. You can't let them arrest me. 16 million. What is a $450,000 condo to you? It's pocket change. Please, just sign the waiver. Tell the lawyers it was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I stood up, stepping back, so that the two security guards Kaden had brought with him stepped forward, forming an impenetrable wall between me and my family. You have 24 hours to pack your things and get out of my house, I said, my voice echoing off the walls of the spacious living room I had paid for. Tomorrow morning, a moving and liquidation company will arrive. Anything left in this house will be thrown into the trash. If any of you are still on this property tomorrow at 9 a.m., you'll be arrested for criminal trespassing. Cassie, you can't do this. Mindy is pregnant, my father roared, his desperation finally turning back into anger. She's 5 months pregnant.
Where
are they supposed to go? They can go live with Mindy's father, I said, not feeling a single ounce of
pity.
Since he was so eager to have this house under Rusty's name, I'm sure he has plenty of room for his precious daughter and son-in-law. And the condo? Rusty cried out, sweat pouring down his face.
What about the
police? The police are already outside, Kaden said calmly, pointing to the window. Through the glass, the red and blue flashing lights of 2 police cruisers reflected off the wet asphalt of the driveway. The rain had stopped, and the morning sun was finally breaking through the clouds, casting a bright, unforgiving light over the front yard. Mr. Vance has already submitted the forensic report and the bank trail to the district attorney, Kaden added. Rusty, you and your parents will be taking a Ride to the station to explain how my client's signature ended up on those deed transfer documents. The front door opened, and 3 uniformed officers walked into the house. Within minutes, the living room was filled with screams, crying, and the sharp, metallic clinking of handcuffs. Rusty was sobbing like a child as he was led out, his face pressed against the floor as they cuffed him. My mother was screaming at me, calling me an ungrateful viper, while my father stood silent, his head bowed in absolute defeat. Mindy was shouting at the officers, claiming her pregnancy exempt her from everything, but she was ignored. I stood by the window, watching them being loaded into the back of the police cruisers. The house was suddenly very quiet. The pink walls of the nursery down the hall no longer felt like a threat. They just looked pathetic, a monument to a greed that had ultimately destroyed them. Kaden walked up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist and pulling me back against his chest. He rested his chin on my shoulder, his warm breath tickling my neck. "Are you okay?" he whispered. I let out a long, slow breath. The heavy stone of grief in my stomach was gone, replaced by a deep, profound sense of peace. I turned around in his arms, wrapping my hands around his neck. "I am perfectly fine," I said, looking into his deep, worried eyes. "In fact, I've never been better." "Good." Kaden smiled, his eyes softening as he kissed my forehead. "Because I have a project in the city that needs my attention, and I bought 2 first-class tickets for a flight to a beautiful beach in Greece. I think we both need a vacation." I laughed, the sound bright and clear, echoing through the empty house.
I
"Promise I won't get motion sickness on the plane." "You better not," Kaden teased, interlocking his fingers with mine. "Let's go home, Cassie." "Yes," I said, taking one last look at the house before turning my back on it. "Forever. Let's go home."